Again, it's talking to our core audience. Who is our core audience? Because the players, the PvE players that don't want to exhibit this bite of failure, we might not be the game for you. The same is true for the PvP players. If you can just continually respawn and go back to battle and, no problem as a result of failure, then we might not be the game for you. The idea is
Preach.
that
Welcome and thank you for coming. My name's Llewd Lloyd, and I'm here to talk about, probably something that's been stated many, many times in the past, which is basically that the game may not be for you. It may not be for you as an individual player. You may want some things that go against the core principles of Stephen Sharif's and Intrepid's vision of Ashes of Creation, and I'm kind of here to set those expectations just a little bit before Alpha 2, so let's get right into it. So let's start with where we are at in development, which is an alpha. If you are expecting a full release game, Ashes of Creation in this current day is not right for you. So it's been stated multiple times. This is a work in progress. Everything is subject to change, but those core principles probably won't be changing. Number one, and probably one of the biggest pillars of Ashes of Creation, is there will be open world PvP. Everybody knows this. It's been one of the main core principles of Ashes of Creation for quite a long time. It has a lot of systems that are going to be interwoven with it, like PvX. PvX is going to include dungeon crawling, raid bosses, world bosses, and just the fact that open world PvP exists will create enough player friction for those node wars, guild wars, and other things that will be happening in the world very dynamically and through a player-driven experience. Now, Bill Trost goes on to explain what he means by a player-driven experience. And honestly, that's core principle number 2.
I was there. Like, it's not a memory of me playing a game. Like, it's a memory in my head of me being there and looking at Kevin and this happening to us.
Yes.
And so it's like it was just something switched, and I was like, holy crap. We're building something different here.
Ready, guys? Let's do this. Dragons!
Some of the best MMO experiences come from the players. They come from other people in the game doing wild things to create major events. It's just part of a memory. It's part of an experience. And I think that is primarily one of the major things that Ashes of Creation is trying to bring back. They are trying to bring back the idea that players can create the world, and although Ashes of Creation is a sand park, not a sandbox, the sand part is what really makes the game come alive. The players and the player-driven experience is what makes the game come alive. And that is what our hopes and dreams for, that a company doesn't just take these experiences and these broken instances and nerf it into the ground or limit the players. What they really want is a player-free experience where we can do and shape the world the way that we would like while keeping some of it on rails. Remember, there is part of the sand park is the theme park part of it, which is the main storyline, the main story quest. But even those with the story arcs and how they can change from realm to realm is kind of its own experience in Ashes of Creation. So even that isn't very limiting.
And those are some of the things that I always harp on, especially with junior designers. I'm like, hey, we're building things, and it's cool. We're getting to express ourselves and build things, but leave room for the player to, because it's those stories that they can tell afterwards.
Absolutely.
That are where the real magic is. So it's like we can design the player completely out of experiences if we wanted to, and that's so. And for junior designers, sometimes that's the that's what they think the job is.
Right.
and so yeah, it's always making sure that both, you know, in our game systems and in our lore, that we're leaving room for players to contribute and to be part of it. And that's another thing that attracted me to Steven's whole philosophy with how we're running Ashes.
Now, I know I mentioned open PvP previously, but one of the major player-driven experiences does come from open world PvP. But your worries are understandable. What happens if a troll comes and ganks you and you just keep getting ganked over and over and over again? Well, I kind of have good news for you as the player that doesn't want to be ganked over and over and over again. There will be meaningful repercussions. If you like griefing people, Ashes of Creation may not be for you. This isn't a game like WoW where there are no repercussions for you killing somebody else or dying, for a matter of fact. There will be death penalties. You will have gear degradation. You will have corruption. You will possibly ruin your entire reputation. Reputation is one of those social experiences that kind of control your experience as a player, as a character in the world. And yes, your reputation matters in Ashes of Creation. If you are getting death penalties like XP debt, if you are getting penalties with corruption where you are gaining more XP debt, losing materials, and possibly not being able to trade or go into nodes, you're going to have a bad time. If you like to just grief people, this game is not for you. If you like to be a bounty hunter, though, you can hunt these people that do choose to live this way. The game doesn't stop you from griefing. Let me get that clear. The game does not stop griefers. But it doesn't make their life easy or inconsequential. So yeah, if you like griefing, Ashes may not be for you. Now, I mentioned a pretty important factor just now, which is reputation. That is a social aspect of the game, something that Ashes of Creation is trying to be. It is trying to be a social MMO, massively multiplayer online RPG. We are trying to have a social experience, which is pretty far from what is happening in most games today. Most games seem to be a single player RPG with the ability to talk to people online. And if you want to be a solo player, Ashes of Creation may not be for you. If you want a dungeon finder, if you want a raid finder, Ashes of Creation probably is not for you. These things are ways to avoid interacting with other players. It avoids allowing players to have a reputation in the game. The fact that there would be no raid finder or dungeon finder means that you have to go out and talk to people. And those people also will want to find people to grind with, to go to dungeons with, to do raids with. And yeah, if you spend a lot of time trying to do that thing and one person trolls you, it's going to be very hard to want to invite that person back. You are going to want to put on your best show when you get invited so that you can do more content. This is something that has been more of a convenient thing, but because the design direction is meant to be around a social construct, a social aspect where you want to interact with other players, these things cannot exist. Therefore, the solo player experience probably doesn't exist quite as much. It's not saying that you can't go solo. It's not saying that you can't do some content by yourself, but there will be harder content and better content where it drops better gear, better materials, and whatnot. And that will be group content. And yeah, there is some potential worries that comes with group content when it comes to zerging and whatnot. That is the type of feedback that Intrepid would like. They don't want to hear about how your class or your archetype isn't able to solo clear a dungeon. They don't care about that type of feedback. What they want is to be aware of the cons and the pros of the direction that they want. So when we're giving feedback, we want to make sure that our feedback is geared towards that direction. And that's kind of the whole point of this video. We want to be able to give valuable feedback and make sure that we are avoiding from saying something that the game design core and principles just aren't for us. So let's move on to our final topic. If you are a risk-averse player, Ashes of Creation is not for you. Ash's main and overarching principle of the entire game. It is going to have risk and it is going to have reward. Risk and reward can vary from high risk, high reward to low risk, low reward, but generally that is going to be the algorithm for, do I get good materials? Do I get good gear? Do I go out and get better stuff? Can I craft the best shit? All these things are interwoven with risk and reward. I highly suggest anybody going to give feedback that wants something in the system that they think about this principle. Are you suggesting something that will be a little bit risky with equivalent reward? That is probably my one and only ask if you take anything from this video, is when you are giving feedback to make sure that it is constructive. Make sure that when you don't like something, you explain why you don't like it or why you think you don't like it. And if you don't like it, at least qualify why the change that you want provides some sort of risk versus reward. As that is probably the main and ultimate core principle that Ashes of Creation and Intrepid have. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. So thank you all. Thank you for coming. And I hope you come again.